Good afternoon. This is the Delaware County Interactive Gaming Revenue Authority meeting for February 15th, 2024 at 2:00 p.m. I call this meeting to order at approximately 2:02 p.m. Please join me and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I will ask our secretary to conduct the roll call.
I can say that Andrew, me, Paul, and Francis are here, as well as our solicitor, Frank, and Vince isn't here yet.
Okay. All right, all of you should have received the agenda last week, and the agenda was posted on our website on Monday, more than exceeding the amount of time that we need to post the agenda to the public. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the agenda? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone oppose? Abstain? Agenda is approved. At this time, we'll open up the meeting for public comment concerning the agenda. Is there anyone in the public? There is no public comment. Okay. All of you should have received the timely minutes of our January 2024 DeSigra meeting from our secretary, Ron Evans. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the January 2024 DeSigra meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments on the minutes? All those in favor, please indicate and say aye. Aye. Oppose? Abstain? Minutes are approved. At this time, I will turn the meeting over to the treasurer, Andrew Nelson.
All right, good afternoon. I have it on my phone. Actually, it is loaded slow. Thank you. All right, so as of January 1st, the cash balance was $196,052.90. We earned interest income in the amount of $5.68. The expenses we paid in cumulative from January 1st to January 31st were $96,312.50. They included checks in the amount of $8,750 to Mainline Art Center, $25,000 to DCLC, $10,000 to Darlington Fine Arts Center, $10,000 to Hedgerow Theater, $10,000 to Upper Darby Arts Club and Education Foundation, $10,000 to Dancing Classrooms Philly Delco, $10,000 to Foundation for Delco Overtown Arts, $2,562.50 to Daily Law Firm, and $10,000 for Media Arts Council. The outstanding checks that were paid after January 31st were in total $41,466.30. That included checks in the amount of $2,500 to Chester Eastside, $25,228 to Community Action, $280.70 to Spirit Media, DCGA-3, and $745.10 to Spirit Media invoice DCGA-2. And there was $150 to Course Vector, which was the monthly recurring expenses. The bank balance as of the date of the report on February 12th, 2024 was $328,633.66. And I did put a note in here that I've been working with the former treasurer and our current chair, Paul Johnson, to get QuickBooks accounting functional. I should have the process completed and the QuickBooks reports ready before the March meeting.
Thank you. And I got to work with my schedule and your schedule for us to get the online bank access to you. I've just been swamped lately. We just have to find a common time.
I absolutely understand. I mean, but until then, this report, it works. It's easy. It's simple.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Any questions or comments to the treasurer for the treasurer's report? Did you have any questions or comments? I'm sorry, I didn't want to ignore because you're off to the side.
I'm here.
I was looking this way. what type of, once you have the QuickBooks operational and you have all the data fed in, what type of documents will you be able to, what type of monthly documents will you be able to provide?
Yeah, every month I could provide the balance sheet, a P&L, which is going to show us just whatever expenses where we're at as far as looking at the budgeting, what expenses came out during that timeline. And I won't do a statement of cash flows, but I think that between the P&L, the monthly, printing out the monthly P&L, where we're at as far as expenses being paid, and the balance sheet would be enough to suffice.
Would any of those replace the current document is something that we've brought over from the previous treasurer? Would all of that information, excuse me, would all of that information be in the two documents that you mentioned, or would we still,
No, we would still,
excuse me?
no worries.
Okay.
We would still produce this report because this is going to be the report that's going to show us all of the checks,
Okay,
right? But I would still include a balance sheet that would be a little bit, rather than putting the balance on here, right? I would show a balance sheet that would show all of our cash assets and any other kind of assets the authority has.
okay.
And then the P&L, like I said, will show the expenses that we paid as of that day.
Thank you.
So wouldn't QuickBooks automatically provide the statement of cash flows tying together the statement of financial position and the statement of activities?
No, I would have to do a little bit of journal entries to produce the statement of cash flows.
Really, even with something as simple as our financials?
Well, so I mean, yeah, so our financials, yeah, it would be a lot easier to convert to cash, so it wouldn't be a lot.
Would it be linked to the bank, would it be linked to the bank account, the checking account? Or is there a way to do
QuickBooks
that?
would be linked to the bank account. So what would happen with QuickBooks is it would import all of the data, right? So up until the bank gets fully linked, any transactions that are added in QuickBooks have to be added manually, right?
Okay,
So you'd have to go in, you'd have to either click to add a deposit, click to add a check.
until
right?
it's linked.
Until it's linked. Once it's linked, it will come in with the amounts, and then all I have to do is go and give the amounts and the check numbers names, right? The other thing about QuickBooks, what it does is when it imports the day it cleared the bank. I'd need to go and change it to the date that we actually wrote the check.
Okay.
So as long as you're a volunteer, I'm comfortable with not providing the statement of cash flows. But when we hire a firm to do the actual work, or you're simply doing I don't want to say simply, where you're providing the oversight, I do think that we should require a full set of financial statements.
So the yearly audits will produce a statement of cash flows at the year end.
Right, for the full year, but not on a month. We can't tie them together without that on a monthly basis. As long as that's what they're supposed to be doing for us, that's what they're supposed to be doing for us. But you're a volunteer, so I'm totally comfortable with
Okay.
just the first two statements.
The only other comment I have is, it's a public meeting, we use TD Bank. My use of it, and also, when I was speaking with Stefan, some of the, using the online banking, there's some glitches with the online banking. So for example, if we do a check search, even though the check has been written and deposited, we may see it on the statement, but we can't use the search functionality to find that check. So I don't know if I hope it's just a glitch as far as you manually using the online banking. And I hope that the feed or the link to the QuickBooks actually operates a little bit better.
Does it search based on the check number? Like if you
I
put in
tried
the
to
check
search on the
number
check
and you
number.
couldn't find it?
There were some cases I searched on the check number and searched a series of dates, and I couldn't find it. And Stefan said he had the same issue with their
I'm
online banking.
surprised. I'm
But
surprised.
then when we went to the statements, the actual
They're on
statements, yeah, they were on there.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if it's just not maintaining the check images inside of because a lot of banks, they'll clear it after 90 days.
Well, I would say they couldn't even find this check.
Oh, that's even, okay. So then I would recommend to the authority that as soon as we can, stop handwriting checks and let's start printing checks through QuickBooks. And then what'll end up happening is those checks will be logged immediately,
Yeah.
right, into QuickBooks.
And we wouldn't have to worry about the feed from the bank.
And when we do the bank import, then it just would match the check data would already be there,
Right.
right? So if it doesn't clear, I'll be able to see it immediately in QuickBooks.
Okay, so we would have to get sheets of checks, because right now we're using like a basic book.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Staples sells books. I mean, they have not books. It's like a ream of checks you can buy, and then you get like there's different companies. What we use is VersaCheck. I'm familiar with that one. VersaCheck has like a $86 a year fee, and then I believe that the ream of checks were somewhere around 30 or 40 bucks.
Okay,
And the authority, a ream of checks lasts us almost a year, and we do significantly a lot more transactions than here.
and it'll print the account number and the routing number on those checks?
It'll print a live check. So the only other thing that we'll need to get other than regular ink is a micro ink. And micro ink is like almost like a magnetic ink.
Oh,
So that way it could be read. So, but it's easy enough. And the micro ink costs for the one that it varies by printer, but the one we use, it costs about 140 bucks. I mean, so the all-in cost to be able to move from handwriting checks to printing checks would be a couple of $100 and,
okay,
not as significant.
okay. Do we need to make that a motion at the next meeting, or since it's a minor expense, if we are in agreement, can we proceed on that?
I would call that.
Okay. We just have to figure out how to pay for it. So we may have to reimburse you. Okay. Yeah, because we don't have a credit card. All right, any other questions for Mr. Nelson concerning the treasurer's report? Do I have a motion I request a motion to approve the February 2024 treasurer's report?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Well, I say aye too. Motion carried. Thank you. At this time, I'll turn it over to our solicitor, Frank Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two quick things. Number one, I will be filing with the Bureau of Corporations and Charitable Organizations, our new listing of officers, since we've had a new election. We've already had Mr. Evans, our secretary, execute, and I'll be filing that. Secondly, to remind everyone that the annual financial disclosure under the Ethics Act is coming up by April 30th. Once again, I will send everybody a copy of the form and offer to file it if you'd like me to do that after you fill it out. But it is something that has to be done by April 30th each year. Even if you are on a board or an authority or a council somewhere else, you still have to file separately as a member of DeSigra. But you may be filing multiple forms. And that's all I have.
Okay. So I do have a question because I am on another authority and I'm a borough councilman, so I would essentially be filing 3.
But you can
Twice,
copy the
that's
one
right.
that you have. You can make copies of it
Okay,
because it's not going to change, of course, and you just got to change the name of who you're giving it to.
okay,
The one you have for Borough Council gets filed with the Borough
Borough Council,
Secretary
right.
Manager of Prospect Park. This one for DeSigra gets filed with the County Clerk.
okay, thank you. Any other questions for the solicitor?
Just one other point.
Yes.
And it's always for the year before.
Correct.
That gets very confusing to people, but it's positions you held as of December 31st, 2023.
Any other questions for the solicitor? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. At this time, at this time, we have unfinished business. One of the agenda items is, I said outsources. It should be outsourced services update. Vincent Rangione, if I pronounce your name right.
Yes, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me just apologize for a little scheduling confusion and being a few minutes late. So I don't know how maybe should have asked the solicitor how to have that reflected in the roll call and the minutes.
It just says
You're
arrived
present.
late.
You're present.
Not right.
Yeah, if you're late, I count you as present.
Okay. Outstanding. So we recently had an RFP to provide a few different services, some related to accounting and back-end grant management, and some related to website and content services. We had 5 respondents, and I have scheduled meetings with 3 of the 5, and I'm awaiting response from the other 2. I think we have a nice variety of qualified professionals and organizations that have responded. And I plan to have a recommendation for the authority at the next meeting as to who should be selected. For anyone who is interested in participating in the interviews, you can reach out to me and I'd be happy to include everyone in those meetings who's interested. And I want to keep an eye on and hear from the other authority members what they think we'll need, particularly as we develop our capacity in QuickBooks with the new treasurer and new treasurer's reports. So I'm happy to answer any questions from fellow authority members on where we are in the process.
We just talked a little bit about the treasurer's report as you were coming in. And there is some, appears to be some increased capacity given the professional capabilities of our new treasurer. What is the pleasure concerning the bookkeeping and the accounting services outsourcing of this authority as far as proceeding? Would you still like to review the proposals, or do we want to scale back some of the services that we need? I'm open to comments from the authority.
So I would only say that my comments are based on this, even if the amount of transactions that the SIGRA did increase by 5, it's not a, yeah, 5-fold. Like even if it increased 5-fold, it's not enough transactions that I think will warrant hiring a bookkeeper. It's just so small, right? As long as we do the bank imports. And so one thing I said earlier that I caught myself afterwards, I didn't think through. So there's an additional report in QuickBooks, just bank reconciliations that will show all of the cleared checks. And I can print out the bank recs and that could actually replace this report.
I think it's an extremely generous for you to offer as a volunteer to be not just the treasurer, but essentially the bookkeeper, accountant, running all the financials for the organization. But I think then now is the time for us to hire a organization, not to be our bookkeeper per se, but essentially to run the authority's back office for us. I'm thankful the foundation is not in the running because it doesn't have to look self-interested. But I feel very strongly that with over $1 million forecasted in income for this year and potentially significantly more growth in the next 2 to 3 years, that it's time for us to take on, to minimize the risk and take on the professionalization of having, whether it's TCF or Brinker or whoever your proposals are from, Vince. I think now is the time for us to become the truly professional authority that we weren't able to be from the beginning because we were just starting out, just getting set up. I think we've been operating fine until probably about 6 months ago when things started to not be as well organized as they could have been if we had had paid staff that were accountable for the operation. I do think, though, Andrew, having you be a professional accountant, serving as our treasurer to oversee and make sure, just as with any nonprofit board or authority where the treasurer of that organization is overseeing and reporting back to the board on the work of the organization, I think is tremendously valuable for us. I think there is simply too much risk associated with the amount of money that is now flowing through the authority and predicted to flow through the authority for us to use volunteers, no matter how qualified, to do the job.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah, sure. I would tend, first of all, I want to agree with Francis wholeheartedly that it's an incredibly generous offer for you to do that. But I would also agree, and maybe the solicitor could weigh in here, from a risk management perspective, I think giving both ourselves the extra protection and the county council the extra assurance, it would be prudent. And I can say, I'm not sure if the other authority members have had a chance to view any of the proposals, but they do fall into a couple of categories in terms of some have a very reasonable hourly rate, some are percentage based. And those, because as the authority grows, those could become quite expensive. And I think at least one of them has a quasi flat fee. So it is something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on as I interview folks, how we can create the maximum level of risk management and indemnification for the
Lowest
most
cost.
reasonable cost. But I do think, I mean, we have insurance as board members, is that correct, solicitor? Yeah. So we're insured, but there's nothing quite like having a professional association also there for us. Yeah.
And
So-
go ahead.
Now, I was just gonna say, so I agree with that. When Francis elaborated and said back end office, that's a lot more than a bookkeeper. And I 100% agree with that. My only statement was that I don't think it's efficient at this point to hire a bookkeeper, but a whole back end support, that makes sense for the authority overall. I agree with that. I have no argument.
Okay.
So I think that we'll proceed, and I think we also stated that we wanted customizable solutions. So as you, Vince, as you interview and you look through these proposals, if there are ways that we can maximize the utilization of Andrew and the utilization of an outsourced organization, where there may not necessarily be duplication of efforts, where we can get the best out of both entities, I think that would be ideal. And
Okay.
then we can make a decision, you know, you can bring those proposals forward or recommendations, and then we can take a vote on it at, hopefully in March.
Sure. And the other thing that I would say is in terms of the web services, we did have some back and forth and an update from Course Vector, our web vendor, who honestly had essentially noticed that we weren't utilizing the full range of our capacity and offered us a lower annual fee than the current monthly fee that we're paying. So I would also like to have a recommendation with regard to the Course Vector contract and how much or how little service we end up actually needing on the website front.
Right, as far as the outsource. So I'll add on to that a little bit. So we're currently paying $150 a month to Course Vector for website maintenance. And they reached out to us. They were very proactive and essentially said that you're not fully utilizing the service and offered to give us a annual rate for less than half of the fees. And
But before we do that, let's use them because our website is so outdated. It's not, it doesn't include a list of grants that we've made. No one's going into the website on the regular basis and uploading the RFPs in
Maximize.
time and, you know, the big news is that you got appointed chair 3 years ago. I mean, no offense, Paul, that was big news then, but it's anybody who goes on, it's just not, we're not somebody,
updated. It's not
somebody
robust.
still needs to be the point person to work with them to say, here's the minutes, here's the financial statements, here's the RFP that we're posting, here's the grants we awarded at this, and I don't think anybody's been doing that.
Paul posts his agenda every month. and
yeah,
I
and he
post the
posts the
minutes.
minutes. And
But do the grants that I guess they were in the minutes, but somebody would have to go into the minutes and read them.
Right,
and-
yeah,
let me ask you the question, because I do agree with you. We're not using it to the maximum utilization. Have you seen an issue, because you just mentioned that, and I don't know, maybe I'm missing it. Are you saying that the RFP for the grants has not been posted?
Those have
timely
been posted, but
on a
then
timely
when,
basis?
I would have no idea if they were timely. I'm
Okay.
going to assume that they were.
All right,
But we're not taking advantage of the opportunity, like when we award all of our, for instance, next generation grants, issuing some kind of a news,
Yeah.
we announced this RFP and we've now awarded 100,000 and these are the list of organizations. I mean, it's pretty simple stuff, but someone has to take responsibility for doing that and then giving it to Course Vector. And I'll be honest with you, I never understood, and this is on me, I never understood that that was something they would do for us. Because if that's something they'll do for us and we keep the big fee, I am all in on that because we're going to be giving out a lot more money.
Right. No, frankly, I didn't understand that either. So, yeah.
I think because it was WordPress and that we were.
We were going to do
trained
it.
How to do it easily.
Well,
to
let
do-
me go on record as somebody who was trained. It isn't that easy.
WordPress is not easy.
No, and you have to use it
Well-
all the time to really be facile.
What I'm saying is it was easy for us to post the limited documents that we post in a limited area. So for example,
User friendly
well,
post, like when you say it's not necessarily easy, but postings are user friendly, like it's easy enough to just go and, yeah.
When I post the minutes, it takes me less than 5 minutes. I'm used to it. It's part of a routine. I got the username and the login.
Let's do the lower fee. Well, and you can do the website. How's that?
Everyone's got to take responsibility for what they do and they have to know that that's their responsibility. Now, he's been doing the agendas, I've been posting the minutes, but as far as the grants, it's like just falls to the cracks. But hiring someone, it's still going to take someone to coordinate, like, this is what you got to post. and all.
Couldn't the back end person be the individual that coordinates that as well?
Well, that's what we're questioning is we could either
They
stay,
could.
we could stay with
They
the
could.
150, direct all that data to Course Vector to post. We may be able to, depending on the scope of services, we may be able to go with the 750, still have Ron and myself give them the agendas as well as give them the RFPs and give them all the other things that they need to do to the website. Or we may just say, we're going to outsource the maintenance of the website. So those are kind of the three questions. We have to kind of compare and contrast between those three.
Right,
different
or does it
things.
just become the responsibility of one of us after each meeting to send the agenda, the minutes, whatever?
Right.
And that's up for discussion.
Well, and I'm happy to volunteer that as part of my RFP review process, I also essentially include Course Vector almost as a respondent to the RFP and see what they're willing to provide, because I still don't have a sense of what they're willing to do for 150 a month versus what they're willing to do for the flat annual fee. And once I have a better handle on that, I think I could better, inform
That's fine.
you all to,
That's fine.
yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, because it may be if we stick with Course Vector and go with an outsourced company, then it may be a duplication of efforts.
Right.
And that wouldn't be efficient or a great use of our resources. Okay, good. Any other questions for Vincent? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to new business. So I want to make this point. We have several motions, and some of those motions are for the same category, but different amounts. So we will vote on the lower amount first. If that's approved, we'll move on to the second amount. And if that's approved, these are not cumulative. It will be the higher of the two amounts. But I wanted to make sure that everyone on this authority had a voice as far as their perspective and their desire of allocations for these grant allocations. Does everybody understand?
Yes. And what would be the procedure given that there's only one motion for the next generation grants? So there's not another one that's a higher amount. In order to amend that 100,000 to a larger amount, how do I
I
go?
believe that-
Somebody has to motion it and I have to ask if they will accept a friendly amendment
I believe so.
to increase the
Mr.
amount.
Solicitor. The other option, and I do also want to make this as a clear understanding. This is, I'll read this and hopefully this will, for the public and for us. The following motions provide a foundation framework for 2024 DeSiga grant making. Allocations and/or categories can be changed in future meetings with approved motions. So for example, if we just stick with the motion here today without an amendment, a motion can be proposed in the future for a second round or a higher amount. Nothing is official until we actually make a motion to authorize the solicitor to advertise these grants, the individual grant categories.
Okay,
So we could stick with this. Someone could make a friendly amendment, or we could stick with this, and in the future, someone could say, let's do another,
Right.
let's do another amount, or let's do another grant round for that grant category.
so if I would like to, in the process, amend the next gen to 150, and when I add the larger amounts in every category and include the $12,409 amount that you have here, I come up with a total of $732,409, which is certainly more than affordable given our cash balance and what we forecast coming in the next 3 months.
Okay, I will read each grant, and then I think I have to make a motion first,
Got it.
a second, and then the amendment after that, the request for an amendment, Mr. Daly?
Yes.
Okay, all right, so I'm gonna start with the first grant. All right. I request a motion to approve an allocation up to $100,000 for 2024 Next Generation. These are youth serving organization grants. All these are subject to county council approval once the grants are approved by us. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I would like to offer a friendly amendment. Would the motioner and the motion maker's second allow the amendment of the motion to increase the amount to 150,000 for youth serving organizations in our county?
I am happy to support the friendly amendment with the general caveat, and this may come up later down the agenda, but I'm happy to support the friendly amendment on the next generation grants with the caveat that in general, it has been my preference in the past and is my preference to see the applications and increase on the strength of the applications rather than increasing on the front end. But in this case, we've had successful next gen rounds and we know that organizations are out there, et cetera. So I am happy to support the friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Does the seconder have to approve as well?
The maker of the motion has made a motion to amend his own motion, and that does require a second.
Second.
Now you can discuss, vote, whatever.
Questions or comments? So now we'll take a vote on the amendment.
And so the motion is to approve the allocation of up to 150,000. Okay, sure. Oh, and an up to, actually, we don't actually have to.
All of them are up to.
No, that's a fair, okay, very good.
Questions or comments?
Well, I think reiterating what Paul said, this is kind of just a framework thing, and it's not we're not announcing a bid or anything like that.
Correct.
That'll be another vote at that point.
Correct. We have that, all of these require an advertisement.
This is just
first.
to try to get a general framework of what we have in mind for the year.
Correct.
And in the next instance.
Well, wait. Let's stay on this one. Let's stay on this one. Any
We have-
additional questions or comments? I'm sorry. Any additional questions or comments on this amended motion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries, I believe, Mr. Secretary, 5-0.
Yeah.
Okay. Frank, are we supposed to record am I supposed to verbally, state the vote count?
Well, it's reflected in the minutes.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. I'm just benchmarking from other places. All right. Also, do I have a motion to approve allocation up to $100,000 for 2024 food/household product insecurity grants?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments?
By approving this does not mean we can approve this and approve the next motion as
Correct.
well.
They're not cumulative. They will, the second one will supersede the first one.
Got it.
Is that acceptable, Mr. Solicitor?
I think we have to do the same thing we just did, which is have the original motion maker accept a revision to his motion, if that's going to be in fact done.
Well, since I made the statement that these are not cumulative, wouldn't that supersede that need for that process?
I guess that does make sense.
Okay.
It's like the second motion is for an additional 50,000.
Yeah. Any questions or comments?
I do have a question.
Yes.
This is general understanding.
Sure.
Why go through the process of doing both? Why not, if we're all unanimous, why not just say like, hey, do we agree with the higher one? And then we could speed up the process.
I want to make sure that everyone that provided a motion has their voice heard with a vote, and then we'll proceed to the second one, because there are different categories that may not be the case for those different categories. All those in favor, please say aye. And, I was going to say any other questions. I'm sorry. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, motion carried. Do I have a motion to approve the allocation up to $150,000 for 2024 food/household product insecurity grants?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. Do I have a motion to approve allocation up to $100,000 for 2024 emergency services grants?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I do have a comment. I think, and it's relative to this motion, but also further down the agenda. We have had a lot of success giving grants to emergency services organizations. And I think that's important. It's an important part of our mission statement and something that we should be doing. But I do want to sort of proactively or preemptively suggest that we keep this one at the 100,000 because I do think that we've had some applicants and some recipients in the past in the emergency services category who don't necessarily fall neatly into our mission statement in terms of underrepresented and underserved communities. And so I just want to be mindful as we go through the emergency services grants that the money is getting to communities and organizations of need in the amounts that they need it, rather than being spread to places that might not fall as neatly within our mission statement, if that makes sense. And I realize now that I need to be closer to the mic.
Duly noted, Mr. Vice Chair. I will also offer a comment about that. We do have a very robust mission, and it does include making sure that we do value diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think all parts of the county have aspects of diverse populations that vary in their representation. I think that regardless of the numbers of that population, as well as the staffing levels, I think that we should do our best to assist every type of emergency service organization as possible throughout the county, and maybe communicate our values. Any other questions or comments on this motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carried. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to approve allocation up to $120,000 for 2024 emergency services grants? I'll make the motion. I'm allowed to. Is there a second? Questions or comments?
I would just say not to, I would just say I'm happy to support the motion, but I do think that your point about communicating our mission and values is well taken, and that communities of less financial need should come with a proposal that is more in line, that shows their commitment to our mission statement and values through the grant that they're requesting, so that it would be some kind of DEI recruitment or DEI community outreach, or something to show that they acknowledge the grantor's mission and intent in their application.
I'm open to us exploring and revising the EMS application that we've used for the last few years to indicate that characteristic. Sure.
I do have a question, just looking to gain a little bit of institutional knowledge. So as far as the emergency services, last year, were there a lot of submissions that were not in line with the mission statement? Well, so I guess to refine my question, because I want to understand, does it make sense to shorten the cost category? Like, is that going to effectively translate into what our goal is?
So, do you want to? So obviously we have a mission statement. The entities, which are departments, companies, ambulance companies, and some nonprofit organizations such as the Safe Corridors organizations, anyone that is involved in public safety or first responders. Some of them are government entities, some of them are nonprofit companies, some of them are nonprofits.
Okay.
Obviously, they all have a mission statement. Sometimes it's hard to find the mission statement of a municipality or a municipality department. So it's hard to answer that question. I don't know the culture within those different entities. Obviously, there were some that are serving diverse communities that have a mission and a makeup that reflects that. But there are some that are serving a diverse community or serving a community that is not as diverse, but still provides emergency services. And the way that we've framed the grant is that there's a connection between the community
Yes.
and that emergency entity. So it's not just solely for that emergency entity. There's got to be some type of community aspect to it.
No, that makes sense. Thank you. That does answer my question.
Did you want to add a comment?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. And I would just say that one of the benefits of being here year after year and doing these grants is that we can refine and improve our process and the applicant's process. So for example, from a different category, we had a food insecurity grant that we gave last round. And when we granted it, we said, all right, we're going to need to work with this organization to make sure that their application next year is more responsive to our criteria. It was a great organization, and so we didn't want to say no, but they do need to do a little bit better this year with their application. And so I would just say if an EMS organization is doing a national night out or a fire prevention week, rather than just letting it go at National Night Out or Fire Prevention Week, that we work with them to specify we'll be providing smoke detectors to low-income families during Fire Prevention Week, like something that shows that they recognize why we're giving them the money.
I think we could do both. I think we could vote for the higher cost category since we have more income coming in to ensure that the possibility is there. Because like we stated earlier, it's an up to, right? And then we can still just be very strategic and intentional in how we analyze the grants. So I think a world can both exist. So yeah, okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carried. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve allocation up to $12,409.94 to some unawarded 2023 emergency services fire company / department applicants?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? I will make a comment. So we had a defined amount of funding. I believe we did increase it slightly for emergency services. There was a priority. Obviously, there was a priority on all of them were received in a timely basis, but we put a shift towards the police departments because they were the national night out. And there were some fire companies that covered one municipality or a large municipality. So we kind of had to strategize and keep some of those off. So my request is that we fund them, but they are not eligible for receiving funding from the emergency services allocation that we granted for 2024. So they would essentially just receive one check in this calendar year. Any other questions or comments?
Well, I'd just say that this emergency category is particularly labor intensive for Paul in particular. I mean, there's smaller grants, there's more of them. You're checking receipts to make sure that or proposals that make sure they really fit the category. It seems like a lot of work, and hopefully with our back office outsourcing, that'll help with that some.
Right. Some of them are smaller because for any non-police department, the maximum is $2,500. But if a police department is going through accreditation, it's $5,000, certification, accreditation, either one. It's $5,000. And if they've received that accreditation certification, it's $7,500. So we have seen some, I wouldn't say the number of applicants is smaller or the number of awardees is smaller, but there's a trend within our county that once one police department gets accredited, they see the amount, even though it's not a large amount, some other ones are kind of jumping on board and doing that.
The incentive is working.
Absolutely. And that's a good example, Andrew, of something that the authority worked together on to say, hey, this is something that we prioritize and we want to incentivize from the grantees. So, I mean, I'm particularly sort of proud and happy that we did that together.
Francis?
No, we're all good.
Okay.
We're all good.
Any other questions or comments?
So
And we will, go ahead, I'm sorry.
This 12,000 figure, it's a strange, odd figure, but I think it's just the sum of
It's
what's
just all
below.
of these, and we will still vote on each of these individually. So
Well, you have a hard stop, so do you want us
I'm
to
good,
do
I'm
that
good.
now?
This is this is my priority. This is my priority. Okay. Any questions or comment? Any additional questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain. So I'm going to jump to those real quickly, and we can,
Sure.
you can, if you want to vote no or vote yes or abstain, that's fine. Motion to approve $2,409.94 grant for SM Valk Lane Fire Company, subject to county council approval. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion to approve $2,500 grant for Chester Township Fire Company, subject to county council approval. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve $2,500 grant for Broomall Fire Company, subject of county council approval.
Moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion to approve $2,500 grant for Aston Township Fire Department, subject to county council approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion to approve $2,500 grant for Rose Tree Fire Company number 1, subject to county council approval.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All right. Motion to approve allocation up to $75,000 for 2024 arts and culture grants. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion to approve allocation up to $150,000 for 2024 arts and culture grants.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? I will make a comment. I do appreciate arts and culture. I just think that we could, in subsequent rounds, I would be potentially supportive of a higher amount, but not at this time for an initial amount. That's just my perspective. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. Motion carries 4-1. That's a good working group. Motion to approve allocation up to $100,000 for 2024 special grants, e.g. countywide efforts, organizations to be determined later, such as SHARE, BCLC, sustainability, etc. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion to approve allocation up to $150,000 for 2024 special grants, e.g. county, same thing. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Oh.
Second.
Do I have a second? Okay, great. You'll split the difference. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Oppose, abstain, motion carried. The second item or the next item is discussion of scheduling of grant categories for 2024. This is not an official vote. This is just our discussion. Motions will be needed in future meetings to authorize advertising of these category grants because they have to be published. So I'll start if you guys don't mind, unless someone wants to start. My thought was we could start with the next generation in.
Are we talking timing? We're talking timing right now?
Yes. I'm thinking that we could have a motion on the March meeting to start that, to open that effective April 1st. Any comments on that?
My only comment is that I would not recommending having any applications come in to any portal. I think it is going to be more efficient, maybe it's not that important, to have the new company hired that's going to manage the process so that the grants are coming into their system, whatever their system is. But maybe it's not hard for them to dump the information into their system after the fact.
Yeah, this would be tentative. Otherwise, we may be pushing it to May.
Well, we don't need council's approval to hire the company. We
Right.
could interview, we're in mid-February now, and if we hired a firm by mid-March, the end of March, and they started right away, early April, we could have proposals coming in April. You said April 1st as a deadline or as the
To
publication?
start, and the applications would be due, maybe we could go.
May
April 3rd.
1st?
Yeah, May 1st, April 30th, whatever. It's just, it was my thought because we.
Right. Yeah.
Just for
I'm just
timing.
trying to minimize everybody's work right
Right.
now. And
And I also-
you're giving your again, Paul, we've had this conversation. You're managing all this Google Docs and if they aren't loaded properly, you're dealing with the applicants. And it would just be nice to have the organization on board sooner rather than later and then open the floodgates.
Right.
By then we'd have our second quarter of funding. So we'd have even more cash on hand to disperse. And so I don't think we need to make a decision of dates now. I would suggest we rank them in order. And it sounds like you're saying, are you recommending we do next generation
Yeah,
first?
so instead of dates, we could talk about the sequence, I guess. I think that's a little bit better. And I know that, I think we all are very passionate about a lot of these categories, but I think maybe children kind of tug at our hearts the most.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think we did them early.
yeah.
The last time too. The only other group that I think, and all the special grants can be spaced out through the years as we want. But the other group that I think is important to provide funding to, especially if we're going to tie it to Delco Arts Week, is the arts and culture groups. And Delco Arts Week is usually the end of September.
So you would like them to have
Second.
would you recommend that they have their checks in hand before that time?
I'm not saying they have to have their checks in hand, but they have to be participating in Delco Arts Week and have evidence of that participation.
Okay, so for example, you're saying next generation first, right?
And then arts and culture second.
That's my thinking now.
Okay,
And I would say in keeping with that EMS makes sense because it's also fire prevention week and night out tend to be in the fall.
Good idea.
And
And ahead of the winter season that's coming anyway, making sure they're funded
right.
in advance of that.
It's a little bit weird or counterintuitive to have food insecurity come at later, but at the same time, the idea being that we're prepared for next winter and knowing that the share food program is likely to be very competitive for a special grant earlier in the year. I think we could make it make sense, even though again, it feels a little bit weird to have food insecurity ranked last.
all right. So you're saying next generation, are we in consensus, next generation, arts and culture, EMS, food and security? Kind of in that sequence.
Sounds good.
And I think we did tentatively agree to 30-day windows for the grant applicants.
Mm-hmm.
But we obviously can extend those if we need to. And we can also, there could be subsequent rounds for these categories too, based on what I discussed earlier.
How do you want to handle the special grants?
I'm gonna continue to have you be the point person for them.
Okay.
And facilitate those to the authority. I would like the grantee or the potential grantee to request the amount rather than any of us to say, asked for 100,000 or asked for 25,000 or whatever. Yeah. And there are members of the authority that may reach out to you
Sure.
to have you contact them, or they may reach out to entities to have them contact you. I think that provides transparency for all of us to operate in that manner.
Okay.
And I thought we mentioned that anyone that is, and please fill me in if you guys remember, if anyone requests 10,000 or more, are we requesting them to present to council? I mean, not the council, to the authority. Big dreams.
That depends
Did we
on,
say,
yeah.
did we say 10,000 or did we say a number like 20 or 25,000? Does anybody recall that
No,
conversation?
I don't recall making a rule like that.
I recall the conversation, but not the specifics. I think in general, I like having the presentations and I like supporting the organizations. I understand it's a little bit of a bandwidth test that could be unfair, but I like supporting the organizations that have the interest and willingness to come before us and make a presentation. You know, I like the idea of having active partnerships. And so if folks are willing to come and make those presentations, I think that speaks well for their
We
application.
want to maybe request a presentation and not make it mandatory. Is that fair? Are we in consensus with that?
I think that's fair. I don't know.
Yeah, as we wish.
Okay. All right, cool.
I think we talked about having, I think I might have talked to Ed Coleman about coming to the March meeting to share with us what is happening with the voter, the taxpayer
I'm in agreement.
project.
I'm in agreement with that.
So I'll confirm that with him.
Okay. All right, so that's the end of new business. Or is there any other new business from any of the authority members? I will share that I did send some information to all of you. It's something that we can talk about later about mental health and law enforcement response. That there is a pilot for it, so I'd like to. We'll investigate it, and I may be bringing that for us for consideration. Any other questions? Any other new business? Is there any public comment at this time? Any authority comments?
I would just like to make a quick comment. In reviewing some of the authority correspondence that we received, I noticed that a number of our grantees of their own volition provided really extensive feedback and metrics about the impacts of their grants. So I did want to make special notice of City Team. City Team did an excellent job providing detail in terms of the services that they provided. Also, the Hedgerow Theater did a really nice job of telling us where the money was going and the things that they were doing. So that was excellent. I think the Overtown Arts Foundation also did a really nice job of talking about how their project aligns with our mission statement. So I did just want to mention there were a few others who also provided good information, but those in particular, City Team, Overtown Arts, and Hedgerow Theater really did a nice job. And in that spirit of encouraging people to report back and develop partnerships and show impact for our funding, I wanted to mention those.
Thank you. Any other authority comments? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned at 3:07. Thank you.
Hope you have time for